We're going to continue and getting to the end now of our 10 Commandments. Let me see where we're at here. We're having to scroll through all of them. And here we are on the 10th commandment. Let's go ahead and turn to Exodus 20, if you would. Exodus chapter 20. And I heard someone say somewhere, they are not the 10 suggestions. They're the 10 commandments. And, excuse me. All right. Let's go to verse 17 in chapter 20. Chapter 20, verse 17 is where we're at. The last commandment, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Excuse me. I don't know about y'all, but my allergies have been whoosh. Because when I walk outside, I just see a big film of yellow dust covering everything. And I literally take my hand and wipe the dust off my shop, bench, table, and all that sort of stuff, and car and all that. It's just mountains of it. But anyway, it's that time of year. Verse 17, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. So it's all about covetousness, right? And we've seen the negative side of the 10 Commandments and explained it and what covetousness is and how that relates to idolatry. And the reason why covetous is serious, why this is a serious offense and why it's one of the commandments. I want to look at, right now, the positive side. We looked at the examples. Did we not look at Achan and Ahab, Jezebel, and Nabal's vineyard? Did we look at that last week? Oh, I thought we did. One person remembers. Good. Okay. I'll take that as a yeah. I thought we did also. So now I want to look at the positive side because I've said this once. I've said it a million times. If you have a commandment that's a negative commandment, thou shalt not, then you should not. But what is also implied in that negative commandment is the opposite is also commanded. So if it says thou shalt not covet, we need the other side or the positive side also. So what's the opposite? Because if I'm thinking of thou shalt not murder, right? Thou shalt not kill. Excuse me. If I'm thinking of that as one of the commandments, then not only do I have to follow thou shalt not kill, but its opposite is also required of me. Well, what's the opposite of killing someone? Loving someone, respecting someone, seeing them as a child of God who is made in God's image and treating them accordingly, right? So what's the opposite here? So the commandment you just read in verse 17 is not to covet. So what's the opposite of covetousness? I came up with the opposite of covetousness is contentment. That's the opposite of covetousness. So the positive, so anytime there's a negative commandment, the positive obligation is also required. So not just that I can just follow, these commandments and it said, I shall not steal. Okay, I haven't stolen. You shouldn't commit. Okay, I haven't done that. But the opposite is also required. So the opposite of covetousness is contentment. So that's the positive obligation of the 10th commandment. It's the remedy for covetous desire is being content. If God wanted us to have more right now, we would have it. Is that all right? If he wanted us to have more, we would have it. Because he's God, and if he wants us to have something, we're going to have that thing. God doesn't sit around and say, man, I sure wish I could give Douglas some more money. I just don't know if I can or not. No, God is God. If he wants to give Douglas some more money and me borrow some, he can do that, right? So whether it's gifts or whether it's job, whether it's money, whether it's a ministry, whether it's a different situation in life, I hate my situation in life, I hate my job, whatever is the case, if God wants you to have it, you would have it. Instead of desiring what we don't have, Christians are called to glorify God daily despite our situations in life. And despite our jobs, despite our money situation, despite any of those things, that's what we're called to do. We're called to glorify God daily and bring glory to God. That's why we're here on this earth, right? You say, well, I'm here to do this, or I'm here to do that. No, you're here to glorify God. And in doing those things, you may bring God glory, and that's good, but that's not your primary purpose. Your primary purpose is to glorify God. Now, contentment means wanting what God wants for us rather than us wanting what we want for us. Does that make sense? If being truly content means we want what God wants for our lives and we don't want what we want for our lives. We should be satisfied with God's provision and that we're able to accept whatever he has or whatever he has promised to us, that we gratefully accept that and we don't try to worry about what we don't have. Let's go to 1 Timothy, if you would. 1 Timothy 6. Let's go to 1 Timothy chapter 6. Contentment, the Bible says, is great what? Great gain. 1 Timothy 6. 1 Timothy 6. Here we go. All right. 1 Timothy 6. Let's look at verse 6. But godliness with contentment is great gain. To be godly is to be contented. To be contented is to be godly. Turn to Philippians 4. Philippians 4. Turn back to Philippians. All right. Here we go. Philippians 4, look at verse 10. Philippians 4, verse 10. But I rejoiced in the Lord greatly, that now at the last your care of me hath flourished again, wherein ye were also careful, but ye lacked opportunity. Not that I speak in respect of want, for I have learned, what has Paul learned? In whatsoever state I am, therewith to be content. I know both how to be abased, I know how to abound. Everywhere and in all things I am instructed both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me. What's Paul talking about there? He's learned to be content, right? He says in verse 11, in whatsoever state I am, let's back that up. For I have learned in whatsoever state I am therewith to be content. He learned to be content in whatever situation in life he found himself. He could be either humble or prosperous, as it says in verse 12. He could be abased or he could abound. He could be full and he could be hungry. He could both abound and he could suffer need. He learned to take whatever life gave him or whatever God was pleased to have him. He could be either humble or prosperous. It didn't matter. His countenance was not going to change and his attitude was not going to change either way. Now, most of our attitudes are good when we're full, but not so good when we're hungry. Like a little baby gets cranky when it hasn't had its meal, right? And so that's how most of us are. And most of us the same way if we look at the other things in verse 12. Not just the full and the hungry, that's the easiest example. But to be abased and how to abound. Maybe in your job you're being abased. Maybe you're looked down on when you used to be looked up to, right? Maybe you're earning a little bit less than you used to, or maybe you have less respect or for your boss has less respect than your other boss had or whatever. He said, it doesn't matter. I know how to be abased. And I also know how to abound if I'm doing good. Same thing that I'm going to be no matter which situation happens. And he looks at the next thing he says, to abound at the very end of verse 12 and to suffer need, right? Paul has learned that contentment was not dependent on what? Not dependent on circumstances. Being content is not dependent on circumstances, right? Because if you think you're going to be content, if your circumstances change and your circumstances change just like you wanted them to, you may be content for a little while. But guess what's going to happen? You're not going to be content again. Because contentment doesn't have to do with outward situations. It has to do with an inward state of your heart, right? That's where contentment is. And it says, verse 13, I can do all things. All we need is Jesus to satisfy and heal us of our contentment. Turn to Hebrews 13. Hebrews chapter 13. All right, Hebrews chapter 13. And let's look at, what verse was it? I was going to look at verse 5. How about that? Hebrews 13 and verse number 5. Paul says, here, let your conversation be without covetousness, and be content with such things as ye have. For he has said, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. Why shouldn't we be content if we have that promise that God will never leave us or forsake us, right? And so he's saying we should not be covetous, in verse 5, but we should be content. That's the opposite of covetousness in the 10th commandment, thou shalt not covet. The opposite of covetousness is contentment. That's what Paul is saying here. He's saying, let your conversation. Now, what does that word conversation means? It just means in this context, your life or your conduct or your way of life, right? Let your conduct or your way of life be free from covetousness. Let it be full of contentment with what God has given us. He has given us, it says at the end of that verse, we should be content, but he has given us himself. I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. So since he has given us himself and he's promised never to leave us or forsake us, why should we not be content with what we have, right? I've got a quote by Philip Ryken who says, when we come to Jesus, we receive forgiveness of sins, the promise of eternal life with God, the promise he'll never leave nor forsake us. He'll help us through all of the trials of life. What else do we need? But we think we need more than that, don't we? Right? The devil and the world and the flesh makes us think, and if you watch any TV or see any advertisements, they'll make you think you need a whole lot of stuff that you don't have, right? Let's turn to Matthew chapter 6. Back to Matthew chapter 6. So we need to trust in God that he will supply everything that we truly need. So what's the answer to discontent? The answer is always faith. The answer to discontent is always faith. And the sin of covetousness is not having faith in God. I want something, I need that, and I don't trust God to give me everything I need, so I'm going to go after this thing myself. So it's a lack of trust in God is what it is. Matthew chapter 6, let's look at verse 31. At the very end of that chapter, Matthew 6, verse 31. Now this, of course, is the Sermon on the Mount that the Lord is speaking here in verse 31. Because if you don't have a red letter, there it is, mine's in red. I've got a Bible that's blue letter, which is pretty cool. The words of Christ are in blue. And then there's another Bible coming out where the words of God in the Old Testament are going to be in blue. I'm like, whoa, don't try to get me to buy another Bible. I don't need another Bible. But anyway, I think that's kind of interesting, right? Anyway, excuse me, sorry about that. Verse 31. Therefore, take no thought saying, what shall we eat? Or what shall we drink? Or wherewithal shall we be clothed? For after all these things do the Gentiles seek. For your heavenly Father knoweth that ye have need of all these things. But instead, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. The only thing that really matters is the Lord. He's enough for us, and he's the only thing that truly satisfies. We've gone over this a million times. I heard somebody say this, I don't know what I was listening to, some podcast or something, or I don't know, somebody stupid said the most important thing in life is happiness. That's the most important thing in life, that we be happy. And I'm thinking, nah, that's not the most important thing in life. But people think that today. And I've said this a million times, when a baby is born, what do people say? I don't care anything about the baby as long as it's happy and healthy. Okay? So if you're not healthy, that means somehow your life is no good. If you don't have perfect health, right? If you're not happy, we should just throw that away, right? All the Psalms when David was talking about how his heart was grieved, we should just toss that out. That's all. You just need to be happy and healthy. I couldn't believe someone still in our day and age. I don't care if you're not a Christian, but you have to be an idiot to believe that the most important thing in life is happiness. Can you not? You don't have to be a Christian to understand that that's just stupidity, right? I don't know how I got off into that, but let's turn to 2 Timothy. Are you ready? 2 Timothy. Jesus is enough for us, and he's the only thing that satisfies. People try to look for satisfaction in all kind of things. They're not going to find it. You want to find satisfaction in a mate, in a spouse? Ultimate satisfaction will not be found in a spouse. If I just got married to this person, then I would be happy and content. Do you want to find happiness in things, in possessions? I don't care if you're a Christian or not. Surely you're not stupid enough to think that possessions will provide you with any lasting happiness. Even non-Christians are smart enough to know that. So what do you need to provide for yourself and your happiness? The only thing that matters is the Lord. The only thing that will bring us contentment is the Lord. 2 Timothy, if I didn't say it, I'm sorry. 2 Timothy chapter 3. I don't know if I said the full reference. 2 Timothy 3, look at verse number 1. Let's look at this. This know also that in the last days perilous times shall come. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good. It keeps going on. Traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God. That last one has the sting. But what does it say here in verse number 2? They shall be lovers of their own self. And the second thing is covetous. They shall be covetous. That's going to be the attitude, and that's going to be how unsaved man is going to be in the last days, right? Covetousness is the same thing as selfishness. It's to love yourself. If you covet, that means you love yourself. The opposite of sinful coveting is not to love yourself, but to love who? It's to love God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and then to love who? Your neighbor as yourself. I was willing to wait for however long it took. I mean, I was going to. I was willing. I mean, I've waited for whatever in my other classes before. So the opposite of sinful coveting is to love our neighbors and to love God, not to love ourselves. Right? Covetousness makes us resent what they have and want it for ourselves. Right? I teach at a public school, and I go out to the student parking lot, and I see cars that I could never afford. I see trucks that cost 3 times what I'm driving, right? It would be easy for me to say, wow, how does an 18-year-old get a $20,000, $25,000 vehicle? I still don't have that, right? And so it would be easy for me to do that, right? And I teach at a pretty country school, not high income school. I can't imagine what the kids in the big schools are driving or whatever. But that's what covetous is. We resent what other people have. We want it for ourselves. It's selfishness. And when you're selfish, you're not able to love God and you're not able to love your fellow man. But covetousness takes the love of our heart and it directs it towards the creature. Now, where is the love of our heart supposed to be directed? According to Romans, it's supposed to be directed to the Creator. We're supposed to love and serve the Creator, not the creature. But that was the problem of these people that Paul talks about in Romans. They worship and serve the creature rather than the Creator, right? John warned this, and I'll quote, "Love not the world, nor neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him." Exactly. I'll read it again. "Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world." That doesn't just mean cars. The things that are in the world can mean what the world holds to be precious, like happiness or love or any of those things, right? If any man love the world, the love of the Father, you can't be covetousness and love the Father at the same time. It's impossible. Our obedience to the 10th commandment is a sign of our love for God, and it's a sign of our love for others. We could say that about all the 10 commandments, but in this 10th commandment, our ability to not be covetousness is a sign of our love for God and our love for others. If we're covetousness, that's a sign that we don't love God like we should, and our desires are disordered. Turn to Psalm 73, if you would. Psalms 73. Psalms 73 is where you need to be. Laura's not sitting up here like she usually is making fun of me. I'm kind of lost now. I don't know what to do. People are actually listening and treating me with respect. I don't know what to do with that. I'm so used to the other, right? Psalm 73. Her mother always told her, and her dad said, you'd be good for something one day, and so there we go. We found it. Psalm 73. All right. I'm just picking on her because she's not here, and it's easy to do. Psalm 73, look at verse 25. Look at verse 25. Whom have I in heaven but thee? There is none upon earth that I desire beside thee. My flesh and my heart faileth, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. Asaph here has learned to be content in God as his strength and as his portion. Think about what he says in verse 25, which is really, there is none upon earth that I desire beside thee. That's a person who has their love ordered correctly, right? Who has learned to be content in God because God, he says, is his strength and God, he says, is his portion. What did God say to Abraham? He said, I'll be your shield. I'll be your reward. Behold, I am thy shield and thy exceeding great reward, right? And that's what Asaph is saying here. So let's go on now to some... Okay, let's go to, did I mess something up on my, no, I just went over it. I didn't tell you, hey, I'm doing something different up here. The 10th commandment in love, covetousness is nothing but self-love. We just love ourselves, right? We love ourselves more than we love. How many times do you covet something for someone else? Like, man, I wish I had enough money to buy this person that. I do that sometimes. I do, and you probably do too. But if I had to count up the times when I do that and the times when I wish I had that. Man, if I wish I had that Bible, man. The words of Christ are in blue. Get that. Whoa. I imagine to say that all of us could say there are more times when we covet for ourselves than we covet for other people, right? So covetousness is just self-love, and it's a sign of our love to God, as I said already. If we covet, we don't love God and we don't love our neighbor. Now I want to go to applications of the 10th commandment. You ready? The 10th commandment teaches us, what does it teach us? It teaches us that obedience to God's law requires right affections from the heart. Remember, we've said this over and over about the 10 commandments. The 10 commandments require not just outward actions, but they require inward affections to be right? Because your outward actions come from your inward affections, don't they? Right? So the 10 commandments is more than just outward, because that man could come to Christ at night and say, what must I do? And Christ would say, well, you know the law. And he repeated some of the law, almost all the 10 commandments. Christ repeated to him, and the man said, what? All these I have kept from my, what? Youth up. And he may have kept all of those things outwardly, but did he keep them inwardly? He may have never, ever committed adultery, but are you telling me he never looked on a woman to lust, right? He may never, ever committed theft, but are you saying he didn't see something that he desired so much that he'd be willing to get it, whatever, right? So he may have kept the outward commandment, but he did not keep the commandments, because commandments are not just about physical and not just about outward actions. The commandments are spiritual, and they're about inward affections, right? And so the 10 Commandments shows us that right affections coming from our heart. It's not just doing right with our actions. Some people think that if they just do right, then that will somehow get them approved before God by just doing right things. Isn't that what every religion in the world besides Christianity is based on? Doing good things and doing right things. If you're a Jehovah's Witness, they write down how many times you went out that week and how many hours you spent knocking on doors, disturbing people's Thanksgiving dinners or their Christmas dinner or whatever, because they love to come over to during the holidays. They know people are there, right? So anyway, but that's every religion, because every man-made religion, it's like the Tower of Babel. We think we can get up to God by our good works. Our building or our scaffolding is our good works, and we can reach God that way. God said, no, every other religion says that. What does Christianity say? Christianity says, you can't reach God. That's the bad news. What's the good news? God's come down to man. No other religion in the world has the deity come down to man. No other religion in the world has the deity that they worship come down to man and took on the form of a servant and made in the likeness of man, likeness of sinful flesh. No other religion in the world can say that. Only God can say, you can't reach me, but I've come down to you, right? That's the good news of Christianity. That's one of the things that makes Christianity different than every other religion. The 10th commandment shows us the law is not just concerned with external behavior. That's what the Pharisees thought, right? Why do your disciples not wash their hands before they, the Pharisees were all about the minutia of the law and keeping the law, the external part of the law, right? But Christ told them that sin is where? Where is sin? It's in your heart. Sin comes from within. Sin is in your heart. It's not the things you do and don't do. It's sin is inside. Sin is inside of you. That's why that man, I believe, probably could honestly, as far as he knew, could say, I've kept all these commandments, Lord. And I'm not saying he's a liar. According to what he thinks, he probably did. But he had a wrong conception of the law, because the law is not just concerned with external, it's concerned with internal, it's concerned with the heart. It shows us that this kind of sin, the 10th commandment, sin comes from a lack of contentment. It comes from a lack of being content with God has given us, and we're seeking earthly things rather than heavenly things, right? Turn to Proverbs 4. Turn to Proverbs 4. Proverbs chapter 4. And I'm at Contemporary Wedding. Oh yeah, this is the Bible I have called the Preacher's Bible. And so in the middle it has, this is what you say at a funeral, this is what you can say at a wedding and stuff like that. I like the Bible, but this part in the middle, I don't really need that. I don't need to know what to say in a wedding because I've already had one, and I already know on 2 words, I do, and that's all I needed to know, so that's what I did. And I've been blessed ever since. I'm not saying that sarcastically, sorry. Sometimes I'm sarcastic. But Proverbs 4, I'm sorry. And I did tell you all the story already. Me and Miss Cravens, my wife, I call her Miss Cravens because at school that's what I call her around the kids. But anyway, Audrey and I told you the story, we may not be married, right? About the pastor calling us. Did I tell you all that story? Yes or no? Okay, I thought I did, yeah. So I don't know if we're truly married or not, to be honest with you. I don't know where Mr. and Mrs. I don't know how Steve Davis is doing, but, I hope he's doing good for himself, and I hope their marriage is going strong. Proverbs 4, let's look at verse 23. Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. We have to constantly guard our hearts against temptations of this world. We have to constantly, in the context of this commandment, guard our hearts against covetousness. We have to fight any thought that's against any of his commandments, but in this case, of course, we have to constantly fight against covetousness. And don't tell me you don't fight against it, because there have to be things that you see and you're like, man, I'd like to have that. I really need to have that. Well, you know what? I think if I needed one more Bible, God would have given it to me, right? I think I'm good, right? But I always want more, whether it's a Bible or whether it's whatever. I want more, right? I used to, when we were driving around and Jared was just a little kid and we were driving around and my kids were in the back seat sweating during the summer because we had no air conditioning in the car. And we had all the windows rolled down though. And it was the Cordoba, right? It was the Chrysler Cordoba. And they had those seats, in summertime when you're a kid and it's sweating, before AC maybe, and you get up and you're kind of sticking to your seat because of the sweat and all the leather seats. And so my three kids were shoved in the back and they were sweating. And then they wondered why I tried to find a tree to park under every time because our car was just like a hot box. But anyway, I wanted a vehicle with that air conditioning. I did. For myself, obviously, but for my kids and my wife also. But the Lord didn't see that we needed one, so we didn't have one. We had a couple of cars that had no air conditioning before we've got our first van with air conditioning that my stepdad sold me for like $200 or something like that, My mom was like, just give him the van. And my dad's like, what do you mean just give it to him? I'm like, I'll pay you some money for it. What do you want? He's like, give me a couple $100. So I'm like, wow, Mom wants you to give it to me, but okay, no. But we had, I've totally understood where he's coming from, because if Audrey would have told me, just give it, I'm like, just give? Or what? I mean, they can pay a little bit. I would have been the same way. So I was fine getting a van for $200. I was happy. But we had AC. But I'm not going to say I didn't covet other vehicles that didn't break down all the time. And my son Jared just did a brake job on my wife's car. And I can't say that I miss the days when I had to change out the drums or the pads or whatever. I don't miss those days at all. And so, yes, we've all been there, right? We've all been there. I don't know. Let's go on to, I've got a quote by John Smalley, I think it is. It says, we have a duty to protect our affections from the entrancing siren calls of this world. You know what a siren call is? Remember back in the Greek and Roman mythology with the sirens? You know them? The sirens were the women who sang out to the, So that's why he used this. Anyway, we have a duty to protect our affections from the entrancing siren calls of this world. We must guard our hearts from media that would excite covetous lusts. The media would never do that to us. They would never get us worked up over something, right? They would never do that. The good thing is the media told me this week that, hey, that age thing about the president ain't no problem now. State of the Union went great, so it's not a problem anymore. I'm sorry. Don't need to bring up politics. Can I finish the quote? We must guard our hearts from media, that would excite covetous lusts. We must be alert to the influence of commercial advertising on our hearts. What? Commercial advertising? It don't do nothing to me. I don't see something new and want it, right, on the ads or whatever. Maybe y'all have a problem with that. I don't know. But we should always be on guard for the signs of covetousness in our own lives. Puritan Thomas Watson, back in the 1600s probably, said that you can recognize a covetous person by what they constantly think about. When you're alone, let's say driving in your car, you're alone in your house or whatever, and there's nothing on your mind is just blank, what automatically comes to your mind? What do you think about? That's if you're not careful, that's your idol. What you think about when there's no thoughts to be had, or there's no chores, or there's no thing, what just naturally just comes to your mind, right? I'll finish. Thomas Watson said, you can recognize a covetous person by what they constantly think about, what they constantly work for, What are you working for? I'm working for the new this or the new that, right? Remember the 1950s? Some of y'all remember the 1950s. I was just a little kid, so I don't remember. No, I wasn't. I wasn't even a kid. Sorry. I wasn't even a kid. I was born in the early 1960s. So some of y'all remember the 1950s, right? Remember there's all this, you got to have the newest car and the newest appliances, and this car has fins, but this car has bigger fins, right? And I love those cars with fins, by the way. Bring them back, I say. But anyway, yes, it was all about having and having. And I understand after the Great Depression and after World War II, when no one had anything, I understand the desire to have stuff. You went through a Great Depression, you went through a World War where there was nothing there, right? And now the war is over, you want to gather. I get that. But America in the 50s became very materialistic about having the newest car and the newest house in the suburbs and Levittown and all that sort of stuff, and having the newest appliances and all this. That's the American dream, by the way. The American dream, you know what it is? It's to have stuff. That's the American dream. But the good news is God will save you from the American dream. I'm sorry. Thomas Watson said you can know a covetous person by what they think about, what they work for, and what they talk about. What are you constantly talking about? The newest bass boat, right, with your buddies or whatever? They will talk about the things of the world more than the things of God. They willingly forsake spiritual goods to get earthly goods, and they are willing to sin to get this world. Wow. That's pretty condemnation. I tried to say commendatory, but I couldn't get that out. So some signs that you might have a problem with covetousness, or I might have a problem with covetousness. Number one, if we hurt others to get what we want or what we covet, that's a sign that you may have a problem with covetousness. Turn to James chapter 5. James chapter 5. The wisdom book of James. The Proverbs of the New Testament. I've heard it called. No one ever called me a proverb of the New Testament. All right, although we have had a prophet in here before. Y'all remember him. James 5. Look at verse number 1. James 5, verse number 1. Go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Now look at verse 5. Ye have lived in pleasure on the earth and been wanton. Ye have nourished your hearts as in a day of slaughter. James is saying that to the greedy of that day, and he's talking about employers too, who cheated their employees. Christians should never compromise their beliefs just because money is on the line. We should never compromise our beliefs just because money's on the line. But if we're not careful, number one, if we're not careful, you know you have a problem with covetousness if you hurt others to get what you want. If we're not careful, covetousness could lead us to neglect our family and lead us to neglect our friends. If covetousness is so deeply ingrained within you that you, as the head of the household, are spending more money on the things you want and the wife and kids don't have money on the things they need, then you may have a problem with covetousness, right? Because it can affect family, it can affect friends and cause you to neglect your family and friends. Look at number 2 up there. You may have a problem with covetousness if you're preoccupied with making and getting more. Well, that's the American way and that's the American dream. Turn to Matthew 13. Matthew chapter 13, please. Matthew 13. That is the American dream. Christians should run as far away as they can from the American dream. Matthew 13, look at verse number 1. The American dream is not a Christian dream. I don't know that it ever was. Maybe when the Puritans and Pilgrims came over here with their Geneva Bibles, maybe America was somewhat, the American dream was a Christian dream, but not anymore. Matthew 13, verse number 1. The same day went Jesus out of the house and sat by the seaside, and the great multitudes were gathered together unto him, so that he went into a ship and sat, and the whole multitude stood on the shore. He spake many things to them in parables, saying, Behold, a sower went forth to sow. When he sowed, some seeds fell by the wayside, and the fowls came and devoured them up. Some fell upon stony places where they had not much earth. Forthwith they sprung up because they had no depthness of earth. And when the sun was up, they were scorched because they had no root. They withered away. And some fell among thorns, and thorns sprung up and choked them. Others fell into good ground, brought forth fruit, some 100-fold, some 60-fold, some 30-fold. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear. We must not be like the thorny soil that may have started to bear fruit, but had the seed choked out by the cares, what does it say? By the cares of this world. They had not really, okay, I've got to go to verse number 18. So go to verse number 18. Sorry. I got a little ahead of myself. which is no great thing. Verse number 18. Hear ye therefore the parable of the sower. So he's going to tell his disciples the parable that he's going to interpret the parable. If you'll skip down to verse 22. He also that receives seed among the thorns is he that heareth the he that heareth the word. And the care of this world and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word, and he becometh unfruitful. The cares of the world, the deceitfulness of riches choke the word out of those who are unsaved. We should not, as children of God, allow those same things cause us to break fellowship with God. Those things will never cause us to become unsaved, because if you are truly a child of God, that can never change. However, as a lost person, these things can take the word and they can choke the word right out of you, right? But as Christians, we have to make sure that these same things don't cause us to break our relationship with God and our fellowship with God. It's the God-sized hole in our heart. Mankind has a God-sized hole in his heart because mankind was created in God's image. You can try to fill that with whatever you want. Nothing will ever work, right? Nothing will ever fill that. Now, I like what he says here in verse 22. He calls it the deceitfulness of riches. Now, how can riches, I've thought of a few ways riches can deceive you. How can riches deceive you? They can fool us into thinking wrong about happiness. Remember that person I heard, and the most important thing in life is happiness, right? They can fool us. They can make us think that if we have them, we'll be happier, we'll be more content. And I know that I'll sit here and say, riches can't do that. I'd like to give it a shot, though, just to see, I'm not just saying. I'd like to give it a shot, Lord. Lord hasn't thought that I'm trustworthy enough to have riches, or else I would have them. I'd like for him to test me. Test me, please, Lord. Give me a couple million and just test me and see if I can handle that, right? But the Lord's not going to do that, because he knows already whether I can or not. He doesn't have to test me. He knows me. But anyway, we think that we'll be happier and more content if we have riches. But any idol that you set up in your heart, any idol you set up that's in the place of God can never fill, I don't call it that, someone else called it, the God-sized hole in our heart. The God-sized hole that man has because we're created in God's image. We're created for his purpose, to glorify him, to love and glorify him. And that is the only idol, if you want to speak to it like that we should have. But any other idol we set up in our heart, it can never fill the hole that's in our heart. Some people feel like love will fill that hole in their heart, or relationships will fill that hole in their heart, or family, or riches, or power, or money. I said riches already, or possessions, or whatever. Nothing will fill that. We're created in God's image. Nothing will fill that except God. It's that easy and that simple. But riches, they deceive us. They're deceitful. Jesus calls them the deceitfulness of riches, because they make us think that if we have them, that we'll be happy. And by the way, why is happiness our end goal anyway? Kind of a stupid end goal. Anyway, verse number 2. They're deceitful, and they deceive us because riches ensnare us. Have you ever met a rich person that said, I've got enough? What did Rockefeller say when someone asked him, how much more do you need? How much does a person need? How many millions? He says, well, all a person needs is just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. And he's J.D. Rockefeller, right? You know his nickname, right? His nickname was Wreckafellow, because he would put people out of business and wreck them. Wreckafellow. I thought that was a good nickname. But anyway, they ensnare us. The more possessions you have, the greater the danger is that they will possess you, right? We think we have possessions, but guess what? They start to possess us. What do I mean by that? They possess our hearts. And when someone's got your heart, they've got you, right? Kevin DeYoung says this, and I'll quote, oftentimes the sin is not the purchasing of stuff. That's not a sin to purchase stuff. Often the sin is not the purchasing of stuff. I lost my place. But the time, energy, and effort required to maintain the stuff, I'll add to that. The time, energy, and required to get the stuff, and then the time, energy, and required, he says, to maintain the stuff. That is what shrivels your soul, is what he said. It's not getting stuff. It's the time, energy, and the money that's required to first get it, and then to keep it and to maintain it, right? That's what shrivels your soul. All right, and verse number 3, was that the nice bell? Yeah. Was the nice bell? So the nice bell, is that the nice bell? No. That was the bad bell? Oh, okay, so that's the bad bell? It sounded like the nice bell to me. I'm going on then. No, I've got to stop then. I've got two more, and if I try to push on, I'll just not be. So I'm not going to put you through that because I've got a couple more that are pretty good that I don't. Anyway, so we'll pick it up there next time. And we're almost done. I think I've gone into this because I think it's important. I really do. Because we live in a covetous society. And you say, well, I'm not influenced by outward. Of course you are. We all are, right? It's hard not to be influenced by the world in which we live, unless you want to just go live on a mountain. You know what I found out? From being, I live in a place that's pretty isolated, and I like it that way. My nearest neighbor is, I guess my nearest neighbor is Jared, who's about a half a mile walk. And then my other neighbor's about a half a mile through the woods that way. My other neighbor's about a mile through the woods that way. And I love it that way. But you know what I know, and I didn't need to find this out. We all know this anyway. You can get away from society if you want. You're like, I'm not going to be influenced by society. You know those Christians that want to homeschool and shelter their kids and get them away from society and put them alone in a cabin on top of the mountain, right, or whatever. Guess what? Sin is inside. You can get away from the world all you want to, but you can't get away from yourself. You can't run away from yourself, and you can't get a cabin in the woods far enough away to get away from your sinful self, right? And if you're a Christian, we still have sin living inside of us that we have to fight daily, hourly, right? We have to put on the armor and fight the good. And that's not just out in the world. So what I find when I'm at home for a couple of days just on my own and nobody's there and it's pretty nice and everything, and I don't have the world to bother with and people to anger me and make me mad and idiots driving in the left lane, driving slow, don't have to worry about all that. But guess what? I still have myself. I'm not getting away from anything, right? So let's stand and be dismissed with a word of prayer.